Hello everyone, this is Aegon of Astora, and welcome back to my caster build playthrough of Dark Souls Remastered. This is episode number 9 being recorded on Monday the 2nd of July. I hope you're all having a fantastic day whenever it is you find yourself watching this. So we have a fair bit of activity here at Firelink, and a lot of dialogue to get caught up on, but we're not going to do that just yet, at least not in this episode. But something else that we have to get caught up on is some of the comments that we've received over the course of this playthrough. Okay, so the first comment is from Deso Penguin, who writes, "If Sweet D was English, then she would have been styled a dame, as Theomany and a couple other people noted in stream. As for Manus, I never thought of a mother of the abyss, but that it was similar to how we call Galen the father of medicine, or the like. An epithet rather than a literal description of a familial role. Extending the parallel, I would suggest that possibly it's not that Manus was responsible for the Abyss's creation. See also the Dark Souls 3 Ring City stating that the armor and weapons of the Ringed Knights were forged in the Abyss, and the Ringed Knights fought with Gwyn against the dragons at the very beginning of the Age of Fire, long before the fall of Oolacile, but rather its spread and proliferation." The next comment comes from Cornwallis, who writes, "I really like the idea that physical size is tied to power level or amount of souls consumed. The game basically shows us this in the Ornstein and Smo fight, with one absorbing the other and growing huge, as well as showing the puppy Sif in the DLC as much smaller than the Sif we fight in the present day, who has presumably been defeating anyone who showed up at Artorias' grave all this time. Gwyn's smaller than expected stature could be attributed to his burning of all his powerful soul away to keep the first flame going. Kind of like a Super Mario situation, I suppose. Indeed, the player character does not grow in size despite the incredible consumption of souls over the course of the game, but in my mind, that could be because the player is an undead human and would seem to not to react to other human beings in the game. Everything you fight in the game that is bigger than you is either a non-human humanoid, Ornstein and Smo, Black Knights, etc., or some kind of monster, demon spawn, humans mutated by humanity run wild. So I think it works to think of things this way, at least within the confines of the first Dark Souls. Admittedly, this goes out the window with Dark Souls 2 and 3, but I find it easier to live with design discrepancies between different games in the series when desperately trying to avoid the explanation of something being purely for gameplay reasons." Very well said. Frampt is providing unintentional commentary. Well, thankfully I'll be able to... Is he snoring? That's amazing. Frampt is snoring in the background. Oh gosh. Okay. Joe M writes, "It's impressive how fast you play and can dialogue at the same time. On 1340 about sizes, I always thought like the gods weren't human, that they were literally a race of beings still influenced by the Lord Souls, but still very different from humans, and similar to the giants in appearance as towering beings. Since the giants seem like a race to me, there could be more races as well. Also, as the pygmy is small, the humans can't grow either as their relatives." That's an interesting proposition. And thank you for the kind words. I can dialogue at the same time and play mostly because I've been doing this for so darn long. Almost 4 years at this point. Not because of any special skill or anything like that. Zanzia writes, "I like to think that Nito's power is responsible for a lot of the poison in-game, mainly going on his ability to inflict toxic and poison effects being seemingly less tied to any particular faction. There's a lot around Blighttown, but it doesn't seem to be originating from the chaos so much as covering it up. Plus, in latter games, its proximity to chaos and fire is dropped. There's pyromancies that inflict poison, but there's also a sorcery for one thing. Out of most of the status effects, poison is the closest to directly causing death next to curse, which also has a heavy Gravelord association, as it's essentially directly sapping life force. Bleed seems to be just losing chunks of yourself more than anything as far as I can tell, similar to just getting attacked in any other way. And in Dark Souls 2, it's the rotten that seemingly inherited Nito's soul. It's probable that Nito created death, probably as a way to hinder humanity, and other threats to the Gwynarchy, I like that phrase, Gwynarchy, such as the chaos in the face of the seemingly still immortal gods. And poison/toxic is a slower form of death, while the curse is the most basic manifestation of death itself. Also, pretty much any spell in Dark Souls 1 that causes poison seems to be related to perversions of inner power. The DLC points towards this being because humanity is dicks, but I really just don't like that way of looking at things, so it might be that humanity, being cursed by the poison of death in an attempt to inhibit their pygmy state, has been scarred in a sense with poison. I don't know. So eventually, despite Nito's best efforts, humanity goes berserk under, pun presumably not intended, humanity goes berserk under the strain of two opposing forces, immortal pygmyhood versus poisoned mortality. Things get weird, and pretty much anything under the effects of mortality and humanity, not necessarily innately born of either, it's probable Artorias got hit with a cocktail of them, and broke under their effects for instance, goes hollow and unreasoning, effectively making things several hundred times worse than if they just let the pygmy do their own thing. Oh, and also Nito was probably a Judicator Giant, in my opinion, given his skill and use of miracles. And the last one for this episode is from Anadonna, who writes, I've had conflicted ideas about what the first in First of the Dead could mean as Nito's title. As you talk about, I wonder how literal it is. Not because I can't imagine what it being literal could be, after all the intro explains that with fire came disparity, including life and death. I can imagine that perhaps Nito was genuinely the first to die. If death came with fire, that must mean the time before fire was a time without death, and so there would have to be someone who died first, which I expect would be quite significant in a world that had existed for a time where death was not a part of the experience. So his having been the first to experience this new phenomenon seems like a pretty plausible possibility. But his possession of a Lord Soul meant that he was transformed into what we know rather than simply dying and that being the end of it. Because the creation myth of sorts that were given in the intro is so wonderfully left with room for curiosity though, how can we be sure that this is the case? Since we're given the space for these questions, I sometimes think, could First of the Dead not be so literal, but maybe be closer to the title of First Chair given to musicians in an orchestra? Maybe he is considered first, meaning of highest authority or with most responsibility. Dezo Penguin writes, Random thought, in item descriptions, Guinevere is referred to as the Princess of Sunlight, say for example in the description of the Sun Princess ring, but here she calls herself the Queen of Sunlight. Is that because Gwyndolin is trying to present her as more impressive, or because Gwyn is now gone and something has to inherit his position so Guinevere doesn't get tagged as the only non-betraying to dragons, non-sealed in a city, imprisoning, scary darkness, non-moon-related power set kid left standing, or because it's something she herself did/claimed before she left Anor Londo, or something else. So the reason why this comment is here, I find it very, very interesting because, as you can see here, in the timestamps for this episode, for episode 7 Anor Londo, I initially had Guinevere Princess of Sunlight, because that's how I knew the character in my mind. Okay, she's the Princess of Sunlight. But then when I listened to the dialogue while doing the timestamps, she described herself, or Gwyndolin described her as being the queen, or Gwyndolin made her describe herself as the Queen of Sunlight. But if you look down at the tags down here, oh wait, okay, well initially in my tags anyway, it said Guinevere Princess of Sunlight down here. So I was stuck between the two, and so I was very grateful that Dezo Penguin brought that up, because that's something that really confused me. I apologize if I butcher your name, but Bjorn Jensen writes, as I have understood it, Dusk's actual time is the past in the DLC. She is only in the player's world because of the entrapment within the Crystal Golem. Once you trigger the DLC, the player cannot summon Dusk in the lake, aka her being taken by Manus. Only when Manus is defeated and Dusk is freed can the player summon her once again. This doesn't make much sense because a thing in the past will always define the future, but we only need to look at the encounter with Sif to see how this would work, but shouldn't really. The player gets the altered intro to the fight if he/she has played through the DLC, but Sif should recognize the player no matter what, because the fight is within the future in the context of the time of the DLC. Hope this makes any sense, and thank you for the upload. I bet Dusk got really good at playing solitaire while trapped in the golem. Well, the way she described it didn't sound like it was a very pleasant place. If Gwyn sacrifices himself and Firstborn was expunged, wouldn't the princess become queen? The question I asked in the episode was whether or not the illusion of Guinevere is like a text-to-speech program that was programmed by Gwendolyn. That's one of the things I would like to see in a critique. Mahler mentioned that the world building does not explain or follow any established rules, and I agree completely. I don't know if that's necessarily true. There are established rules, but I think that's something that's true in fiction and generally. When there's issues with time and space being distorted, you can end up going in circles. One example that I talked about in Let's Talk Lore was the movie Arrival, which if you haven't seen it, I would suggest absolutely doing so. But there's a lot of really confusing, at least initially, time and space stuff that's happening in that movie. And I want to say that it's free of holes, but I don't think that's entirely true. But it's about as close as you can get to that, I think. So yeah, I don't remember where the comment was. I've already lost it in the ether of my mind. But the comment I found very interesting was that which raised, and I'm also sort of somewhat thinking about my appearance on Sinclair Lore's YouTube channel, where we talked about why the Abyss is harmful. If humans are made from the Abyss, or of the Abyss, or however you want to put it, why is it that the Abyss harms them in the Artorias of the Abyss DLC? And the answer that I gave is simply that humans are, by way of looking at a real-world example, humans are made of water, essentially, or in large part made of water. But that doesn't mean we can live in water. So too much of anything is bad. But also Artorias isn't human. So the Abyss has a effect on him that is not at all pleasant. So, yeah. Okay, so now that we've read out those very interesting comments, some stuff to keep in mind as we proceed through the playthrough. We are going to head over to the Sanctuary Garden. Or the Oolacile Sanctuary, I should say. Okay. So since we last did some playthrough, since we recorded the previous episode, I have done a fair bit of co-op in order so that we might increase my pyromancy flame to Ascended +5. So we have done that. We earned a crap ton of souls from helping people. I helped several people defeat Artorias, as well as several people defeat Ornstein and Small. And by several, I mean like 15 or 20. So did a lot of really good co-op with this build. But now we're at the point where, yeah, we're doing quite well, I think, in terms of the power of our pyromancy flame. So let's see if that makes any difference, because the previous episode, we were getting our rears kicked by Artorias over and over and over again. I'm not sure if I'm ready for this, but there's only one way to find out. I'm going to put this on first this time, just in case we need it. Oh, that hurts. Oh, that was really dumb. All right. Rest in peace, Artorias. And we got our souls back. That was so much easier than it was previously. Thank you, everyone. We might as well kindle the bonfire here. And let's go see if there's something going on in here. Well, I presume we need to rezone for this, so let's quit and reload. As if you didn't feel bad enough for killing poor Artorias. Hi, friend.
You. Is that not the soul of the man who fell on this spot? He was a dear friend. I wish to pay proper respect with that soul. Would you be willing to part with it? Yes, of course. I must not be presumptuous. Artorias would not have approved.
So it's very obvious that they have a very close relationship, her and Artorias, and that Artorias had very specific values and ideas of how things should be done. And that's something that Ciaran, in spite of the fact that she just asked something that in her mind would run counter to those values, she still holds those values quite dear. And so the reason we said no is so that we can read the soul before giving it to her. Soul of Artorias, soul of Lord Gwyn's knight Artorias, who was consumed by the Abyss. The legend that Artorias repelled the Abyss only told half of the story. It seems that he was defeated and his honor preserved by some unsung hero who is the true victor over the Abyss.
What is it? Something else? Have you changed your mind? Thank you. You are very kind. Please take this. I no longer need it. May the Lord guide thee.
Curved sword used by the Lord's blade, Ciaran, one of Lord Gwyn's 4 knights. Ciaran brandishes her sword in a mesmerizing dance, etching the darkness with dire streaks of gold. We also have the Dark Silver Tracer, a dark silver dagger used by the Lord's Blade Ciaran, one of Gwyn's 4 knights. The victim is first distracted by dazzling streaks of the gold tracer, then stung by the vicious poison of this dagger. Okay, friend. Take care. I'm sorry that I killed your husband or boyfriend or whatever he happens to be. Or just friend, respected comrade. I'm not sure if it's ever made clear. You can see that she's not only placed a flower here in his memory, but also the tassel from his armor set. It looks kind of like one of the slugs or the phantasms from Bloodborne. Almost certainly a coincidence, but Ciaran is also the firstborn. Makes sense. And so I'm not sure if, because, you know, I don't have the guide to this game the same way that I do for Bloodborne and Dark Souls 3. But it does seem as though these enemies are very weak to fire. Which again makes sense given the opposition of fire and dark, which pervades all the Dark Souls games. But I can't say for sure whether that is indeed the case. They do drop large Titanite shards. So here, you can see, not all the way down to the abyss just yet, but you can see traces of it, like it's so dark. And this just doesn't look like a pleasant place. Look at those booger brains. I don't know what those enemies are called. Bloatheads, is it? And so you can see the... something I pointed out in Dark Souls 3 Let's Talk Lore. This is basically a carbon copy. It's the exact hand that pops out of the Curse-Rotted Greatwood in the second phase. It is basically the same hand. Could the deep have spawned from this accumulation of abyss? They're called human Aegon just because they look different. Okay, fair enough, Twiggy. I can't remember how we're even supposed to get the Bloathead item, though. Is that just a rare drop from them? Or is there a specific way we're supposed to get it? Actually, you know what? We're going to leave this side path for now. Although one of them does have the... does have a carving that we want. But we do need to come back here when we have the ability to cast light. Because otherwise we can't get into some of these spots. So yeah, we'll leave this for now and we'll come back. They're sacred bloatheads. I like how everything's sacred for Scarroad. Who am I to argue? JSep explained it pretty well in the podcast with Sinclair that he was supposed to do with Aegon, yeah. Oh, poor JSep's never going to live that down. We'll certainly find time at some point for the three of us to get together again. I can't say when that time will be for me, unfortunately, as of right this moment, just because I got a lot of stuff going on at the moment, but... Whoa! I didn't know that his crossbow was nearly that powerful. Holy moly. Now I'm curious. I'm curious what happens when you go and speak with him. We will later in the playthrough when we're more PvP ready, we will go to the arena and try it out. But for now, I want to see if his dialogue changes at all. I was trying to parry him, not thinking that, wait a second, he doesn't have any parryable weapons, I don't think. It's just all his crossbow plus his, like, sweep kick. Like, straight out of Street Fighter. It's a ducking R2, or whatever it's called in that game.
Oh, you again. Whatever's the matter? No, I can tell. You need me more than ever. Did you really slay Knight Artorias? I'd heard the Abyss found him first, but even still, that's absolutely treacherous. Yes, magnificently so.
So what does he mean by that? Is he calling us treacherous? So treacherous meaning guilty of or involving betrayal or deception. So a treacherous Gestapo agent. My read of him is that he's basically figured out why you killed Artorias. He just likes how it subverts the common narrative. Oh, very clever, Scarrow. Maybe that he's referring to the legend of Artorias. Because, yeah, if he is really, like, from a much later time than us, which he very much appears to be, then that would make sense. Because the entire story is quite tragic, and we seem to know what that story is, yet we still killed Artie. That is to say, the fact that he had to be put down subverts the narrative. Yeah, the usual narrative tropes, and that's, in large part, Artorias' storyline is a big part of the reason why I started making videos on this channel. Because it blew my mind so much that, hey, there's a video game that actually understands how history works. And how it's almost never the way, you know, history, the way it's presented. It's almost never the way it's presented in history books.
Believe it or not, Oolacile has brought the Abyss upon itself, fooled by that toothy serpent. They upturned the grave of primeval man and incited his ornery wrath. What could they have been thinking? But to you and I, it's all ancient history. You have to ask yourself, does it really matter?
So I mentioned this on Sinclair's podcast, but I suppose that could be FromSoft speaking directly to the player. Does it really matter what the story of these games is? Does it really matter? I don't know that it does, but it's still fun to speculate about it anyway.
What? If you've something to say, then say it. Just don't say the wrong thing.
It's so weird hearing the regal voice of King Vendrick come through this pseudo Guy Fawkes mask.
So long. We'll be seeing each other.
Okay, usually he just says so long. So I presume the "will be seeing each other" is added after he invades you. It's the same voice actor as both Jura and King Vendrick. I thought maybe you could kick him and like put him off, like knock him out of his cool guy leaning against the wall stance, but I guess not. Yeah, great voice actor. Well, too bad for him. I don't need blood ministration anyway, I'm fine. That's not bad. Maybe we should have 2 fireballs instead of 2 combustions. I'm looking forward to being able to get the black flame though. Oh, invaded by another player. Hello. Oh, come on. Oh my gosh, there goes all like the 12 humanity we had. Gosh darn it. All that humanity from all those co-op sessions. GG. It would be nice if you could back out of gestures now. I would really enjoy that. This is bad. It really doesn't take much to get me off my game. A rude invader, and then suddenly I'm getting obliterated by a trash mob. Okay, let's try again. Nope. Thank you, Red Tier Stone. Okay. I would recommend going hollow through this area because it's a PvP hotspot and invaders are accustomed to ruthless gang squads, so they will not bow. Well, the reason we're not hollow is because we want to be able to fight Chester again. So that's why we're not hollow just yet, so... You and your friggin' Street Fighter moves, I swear to God. Oh. What the heck was that? What was that? There goes our bloodstain. Can we quit and reload and get it back? Nope. No bloodstain. Okay, that's fine. The cat knocked him down into the... Yeah, he really did fall into the abyss there. That's perfect. Very good. So in Dark Souls 1, I always put my carvings right at the bottom of the list for easy access. So that we can just...
Very good.
It's the only one of the Dark Souls games with where the inventory system is conducive to using carvings without having to put them on your hotbar, and I like that a lot. Carvings are very important to me, as you can all very much tell. No, that's bad. Oh, that's even worse. Whew. can't help but think that Artorias would have talked like Memetim. Take care, Memetim. Oh my gosh, another invader. You guys were right. Let's go unlock the shortcut. And then we'll loop back. Or we'll try to unlock the shortcut anyway, because this might not work out. Oh, that's bad. Oh my gosh. I should have been more patient. Okay, no more going on tilt. No more being upset by invaders. We're just gonna calmly and comprehensively complete the area. This game, together with Dark Souls 2, are supposed to be my bread and butter as far as my Souls expertise goes, if you can describe this as such. And yet, yeah, this playthrough has not exactly shown that to be the case, at least up to this point. This caster on the other side of the bridge has tremendous range and quite good vision. They just want to tell you a funny joke, yeah. I remember when I first went through this area, I spent so much time trying to get the timing just right for the, I suppose it makes sense that they would drop green Titanite shards instead of large Titanite shards. Yeah, I spent an absurd amount of time... Oh, why am I doing that twice? Trying to get the silver pendant timing just right for blocking magic attacks. At that point in my Souls playing career, hadn't yet realized that dodging is almost always a better option. OP, the OG Garden of Eyes. Yeah, almost certainly. There's definitely design similarities there, that's for sure. Oh my... That was bad. Okay, are we safe now? Well, Wilhelm just needs a lake. And a terrace. And he's a happy man. Do I have 0 firebombs? I have 0 firebombs, okay. I suppose we do have fireballs. But that didn't do a scratch on them. I was never really any good at... I'm so level 50. I was never very good at parrying in Bloodborne. Ham, so we're even. Oh no, that's not what I wanted to use. Okay. Let's do this another way. I'm so bad at this game. Oh my gosh. I have no idea how we're going to deal with this. I need to get my souls. What are you pointing at there, friend? Is this supposed to be pointing at us? Yeah, I felt so bad when I didn't realize the snack covenant thing, what that meant when on her podcast. She asked the question like totally in jest too. And I'm just like, snack covenant? Like what game is that in? I was so confused by it. The glare on my monitor is also becoming an issue here too, in addition to me just being bad at the game. Am I not close enough? No! Gosh darn it. The number of combustions I've wasted. Hi, Cassidiv. We are all well. I hope the same is true of you. Except I'm just getting my butt kicked. And repeatedly illustrating that I have no idea what I'm doing when it comes to caster builds. This is also, I think this room here is among the more nasty spots in the DLC. Where there's just so much that can go wrong. Look at this. Look at this bloathead hiding behind the caster. Well played, friend. There we go. It really is one big monster closet. I'm not a fan of the casters, though. Nor the lack of lock-on range here. Yes! I cannot believe that worked. So, Soul of a Proud Knight out here. Soul of a Hero, rather. Alright. Whew. We almost did it. We're almost there. No. Well, it is really one thing I really do appreciate about the design of the bloatheads is how they accentuate all the features of Manus and illustrate that... What are you pointing at, friend? The table? You want me to set the table? No? Do you know what you're pointing at? That's a weaker one, too. 394. And how much damage does this one take? No! Oh, crud. Okay, maybe I'm just imagining it. Who would have thought Oolacile was so big into comedy? I thought their thing was light, but I suppose comedy is right up there with light in terms of their favorite things to study. Okay, this is getting very dicey. Very, very dicey. We do, of course, need the crest key, so that we can go talk to our friend. Bent crest key. The grooves of the crest are enchanted, the door sealed with a powerful spell. So, hinting that it was the sorcerers of Oolacile who locked up Hawkeye Gough. Trying to remember, we need to go down here? No, because, oh yes, to knock down the item that's there, and that is Dark Fog, I believe. Yeah, Sweet D is all about the comedy, so this is her kind of place, really. I wonder if landslides here. Humanity ahead. What the... Oh! This I did not know. Today I learned that there's twin humanities there. And I've never known that. Dark Fog. Abyss sorcery discovered by an Oolacile sorcerer on the brink of madness. Create a cloud of dark fog. Although dark fog is, in theory, relatively close to humanity, it also happens to be a terrible poison for humans. Perhaps it reflects man's cruelty against his own. I have a feeling this is going to end really badly. Oh no, we just go... Never mind. I thought there were a few bloatheads we needed to kill first before unlocking the shortcut. So let's go speak with Hawkeye Gough. Those statues with the white ivory catalyst remind me of the Earthel jailers. Yeah, we'll have to get a closer look at them. So you can see here that Hawkeye Gough is hard at work with his retirement activity of making carvings. You see the wood here with which he's making the carvings. Several other logs. And presumably he was dropped here from above, because I can't see any other way for them to have built this, for him to have entered this place through the one door. And you see obviously all the shavings here from the carvings that he's doing. But then that raises the question, where the heck does he get all the logs from? If he was in prison here, did he say,
"Oh, you sorceress, could you bring me some logs with which I might carve some carvings that say, 'Hello, very good, thank you, help me, I'm sorry'?"
I suppose that's what happened? Not entirely sure, though. Hi, friend.
A visitor, have we? Thou must be the one who freed Artorias. An old friend he was. Thanks to thee, he left this world with honor intact. And here I am, retired and blind. Of little help to thee, I'm afraid.
Yeah, you might be right about that, Astrolace. So, whereas Chester described what we did as treacherous, Hawkeye Gough specifically says, you freed Artorias. So, a bit of a different take on it.
If thou seekest to explore this domain, be wary of a black dragon. I fear thee no match for this terrible beast.
To answer your question, Scarrow, that's actually, I help anytime.
I help anytime.
Because he's always here at the ready, in case I need help with things. So...
There's very little to be said. What good is a dog with no hairs to hunt? But I'm lucky to be alive, I suppose.
So what good is a dog with no hairs to hunt? So essentially, the thing we've learned about through all of the games, that you need something to keep you busy, you need something to do if you're undead. He's not undead, I don't think. But that's what you need if you are to not go hollow. And presumably, because he's got no more hairs left to hunt, that is to say that all the dragons are dead, he's a dragon hunter. A dragon slayer, however you want to say it. But he's filling his time with carvings. He is indeed the one with resin in his helmet. But in addition to the carvings, which he sells for a nominal amount, 5 souls is virtually nothing. Which shows that he's not doing this for profit. Because the amount that he spends on each carving based on this one, like that's going to be like... That's not a carving that says just a simple phrase, that's a it's like an essay carving. Because he's been working on it for so long. But in addition to the carvings, he also sells his own excrement. Seemingly. Which is, yeah, very interesting. Very, very interesting. We don't want to buy that many dung pies, but we do want a few. We'll take some of your poop, kind sir. And Homered Bones and Prism Stones. So Homered Bones may be the bones of undead who have tried to murder him? Don't know. Yeah, he's working on a Yeah, he's working on a dissertation carving. That's what that is. Wow. Yeah. All the accumulated knowledge of all those years of dragon slaying. He's also selling his great arrows. So presumably, again, because he no longer needs them. But these are being sold at a much higher cost, presumably because the materials cost more? I don't know. I'm not really sure what sort of business model he has going here.
Farewell, human. Lead thy life as thou seest fit.
He is indeed going to be a PhD in friendship, that's for sure. Okay, let's go speak to Chester now.
Oh, you. You have quite some nerve. Or are you just thick? Fine then. What is it that you need?
That's some interesting logic there.
Well, you've quite the nerve. I've had enough of you. Well,
Okay. He doesn't raise his prices, does he? That'd be kind of interesting if they made him do that. I will have some of your wares, sir.
I'll be seeing you if you survive your travels.
Wow, so his exit greeting changes each time. That's pretty interesting. I actually like the cut design for him more than his final. The cut design was originally... He's really upset that he backstepped off the cliff. Yeah, he should be upset at gravity, not me. I actually didn't even kill him. I almost forgot about that. I personally see Chester as the upfront patches. He does his own dirty work. It's an interesting perspective. Rocksot? Hello, friend. Alright. Finally, we can proceed. I think it was Nicole who mentioned in the chat, please correct me if I'm wrong, that these statues reminded, none of which have heads, I don't think. That they remind her of the jailer handmaids in Dark Souls 3. I'm sorry, I don't remember who it was. Sacred Headless Maidens, indeed. Look at that sniper shot. Oh my gosh. Oh, thank you, Vodka Foley. Something to think about. A lot of enemies slash sacred enemies of a sort don't have heads. These statues, Titanite demons, crystal golems. So does that mean that someone was specifically committing sacrilege by cutting off the heads? Hello, Mirrorlocks. I hope you're doing well, friend. Thank you for joining us, and to everyone else who's been here for the last 2 hours and 8 minutes, as well as those of you watching on YouTube. I know this series isn't quite as popular as Dark Souls 3 Let's Talk Lore, and that's totally okay, but I hope those of you watching know how much I appreciate you watching. Yeah, the statues in Lothric as well. That's still something I've yet to really make any sense of personally. No. The knights were, well, because the knights were actually shite. That hurt really, really bad. Really, really bad. Yeah, the knights in Lothric, they have a whole thing about ceremonial beheading, such that the statues are made from the outset, presumably, to be holding their own heads. As Candidate has noted in the chat. Oh my... No, that's okay, Twiggy. Thank you, though. We're just gonna run through now that we've lost our souls in humanity again. We've lost something like 15 humanity in this one episode alone. Yep, none of these statues have heads either. It's like crestfallen person. Whew. Alright, let's go up. Let's go back up and deal with that enemy now that we've unlocked a shortcut. Ooh. We get a close-up look at this guy. I've never had a close-up look at this guy. So what the heck is going on here? I don't understand this. Because there's so much going on here. Because first there's this thing, which looks like a brazier for flames. But it's hanging from a chain that is then spun around his entire body. There's this protrusion here. And then another chain that's tied to a giant boulder. And his legs are covered in moss. And has what looks like not tree stumps, those are like bolts. Like Frankenstein's monster bolt. Yeah, I don't know what's up with this guy. It is indeed quite strange. And he drops. Oh, wait. It's not a fixed drop. Because sometimes that enemy drops chainmail. So he's not. I was certain that he was, as well. As was Twiggy and Theomany. And Nicole. It is possible that all of us are just assuming that because you fight them, and then you just keep going. Like, there's really no reason to come back here. But, this, okay, so this protrusion here is actually a log, or a tree stump or something, or not a stump, but like a tree. Maybe crestfallen escape from Oolacile prison has been glum ever since. Possibly. Yeah, chain leggings. So they wanted you to have a spot to farm the chainmail set, maybe? I somehow very much doubt that, but Chainmail leggings of thin interlinking rings of steel. It is common throughout the human world since it can be easily produced, is not too heavy and offers good defense. Knights may favor flashy armor, but for warriors on the battlefield, anything is fine as long as it keeps them alive. Okay. The chain prisoner might even be a demon given the hooved cloves for feet. Yeah. Maybe another product of Oolacile experimentation. Who knows? But yeah, that's going to do it for this episode. So thank you all very, very much for joining us, and we will see you in the next one. Bye-bye.